maybe the education was just that we play so many times together, and there's an automatic learning in the process of playing, I think. You're still my first choice.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
The only problem is geography. When you hear something that for you is really special, don't just let it pass. So Gordon said, yeah, just take my brother Jimmy. Now, Jimmy Johnson is famous now. Nobody knew who he was when I got him on the album. He was just some kid. He was like, I don't know, 17 maybe or something, maybe 18.
My God.
And I just looked at her. She looked at me, and she had been in the limousine too while this guy was acting crazy. And I looked at her, and she looked at me, and I said, just two words, fire him.
I'm very happy and proud to have you here. John, you are my drum teacher, music teacher, English teacher, and most you are a friend, and I'm very happy, very happy.
Well, it's always a pleasure. But as far as being your teacher, I think I only made 2 comments to you in 6 years. So I didn't do that much, but maybe the education was just that we play so many times together, and there's an automatic learning in the process of playing, I think.
Yes, since the moment we met, I discovered that was an opportunity for me to learn through your music, and because the great player you are, and the great piano player and composer, and also timpani player and percussionist and everything you are. And
Thank you.
so I recognize the chance, and I ask you, maybe I can do something for you and be I can be your drummer for a while, and I did for 6 years.
You're still my first choice.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
The only problem is geography, but we can solve that.
Yeah, we can solve it. We can fix it. Yeah. How did you decide to be a percussionist, composer, and piano player?
Okay, yeah, it's a long story, but I give you the short version.
Yeah, sure.
So my father was a musician, professional musician in New York, an accordion player, and so I started playing the accordion when I was 4 years old.
Wow.
And without lessons, just I would hear some song on the radio, and I would learn it by ear and play it on this small child's accordion.
Yes.
And then when I was 6 years old, my father started to give me the lessons. And then when I was about 9 years old, I started to take percussion lessons in elementary school. And then at some point I got a drum set when I was pretty young. And then when I was around, I think 11 or 12 years old, I told my father, I'm not playing anymore the accordion. I don't like it. And my part of the reason was I didn't think it was cool in the 1960s to play the accordion in New York. I thought it was much better to play the drums, and I decided to switch to piano because I still wanted to play a keyboard instrument. Then now I became the timpanist in my junior high school band, concert band, that played classical band music, and I became the timpanist, and I started to progress very, very fast on timpani. So when I was 15, I was playing the Vic Firth etudes. I learned all of them when I was 15 years old because I had an amazing junior high school music teacher, and she said, "This is what you got to do." So I did it. Then, like 5 years later, I'm at the Eastman School of Music, and they have the Vic Firth etudes for your 3rd year at Eastman.
Wow.
And I said to my teacher, John Beck at Eastman, I said, "Well, I already did them when I was 15 years old."
And what I say?
Well, I did them again with him.
Yes. Just true.
And but at that point I was at that point I was in my first year at Eastman.
Wow.
So I was jumping to the 3rd year curriculum, and I had already done it a few years before in junior high school, so I was very advanced on timpani. And when I was I guess a senior, John Beck said to me, "I can't teach you anymore on timpani, and I have no more music in my office to give you to learn, because you have learned everything that written for timpani." Yeah, I learned all of the Elliott Carter etudes, all 8 of them, and I learned all the solo pieces for timpani written by everybody, and there was nothing left. He said, "I have no more music to teach you." So we finished with timpani. We just continue with marimba and snare drum and multiple percussion. So that's, but anyway, so now going back to when I was 12, 13 years old, I think, I started to play gigs on drums with my father. I started to do the gigs that he was doing on accordion, which was mostly like wedding receptions and bar mitzvahs and parties. So it would be like my father on accordion, me on drums, and some guy playing clarinet. Or so I started learning all these different rhythms, you know, jazz rhythms and Latin rhythms, merengue and bossa nova and those things. And I started to develop as a drummer, and then I started to hear all these standards because you know on those gigs in New York back in the 1960s, those wedding receptions, the musicians played standards.
Yeah.
That's all they did. They played standards. They played like from the American Songbook, Rodgers and Hammerstein and you know, Gershwin and all the standard tunes. They all knew them and they all played them by ear. And nobody had music and nobody needed music. And then when rock and roll came, they started to add some of the rock and roll tunes because they were very popular with the wedding guests.
Yes.
So you know, the wedding guests, they wanted to hear, you know, Spinning Wheel, you know, that was recorded
Blood, Sweat and Tears, Blood, Sweat and Tears.
by Blood, Sweat and Tears, you know, and Jeremiah was a bullfrog and all these things. So, you know, we were, and songs of the Carpenters and stuff. So we're doing instrumental versions, you know. Then I just started learning a lot of tunes just for my own enjoyment. So I started learning all the Burt Bacharach tunes, and I would play all the Beatles tunes on the piano, and I would go to my friend's house, and there would be a lot of my friends at the house, and there was a piano, and I would just play whatever were the newest tunes from the Beatles albums or from anything else that came out that was, you know, really good music. You know, I remember I used to play MacArthur Park, you know, on the piano and stuff, and just sit there and play for hours, you know, and my friends all hanging out, you know, and we would also listen to a lot of records. And then little by little, I started to listen to some jazz. I think some of one of the first things was probably Dave Brubeck's album Take Five.
Yeah.
I think that was the first. That was one of the first, not exactly the first, but one of the first. And it was. I heard some Miles at that point, maybe, and some other things, but I don't remember very well. But then I went to Eastman, and I graduated high school 1 year early, so I was only 17 when I went to Eastman. When I first arrived, there was a concert of the Eastman Jazz Ensemble, and it was amazing. It completely blew my mind. All the compositions and arrangements were by the students.
Wow.
And the players were great. They were great ensemble players, great soloists, everything. And the music was really hip, really, you know, really like modern jazz stuff, like, you know, swinging stuff and straight eight stuff and every kind of thing. And I just blew my mind. And that's when I really started to get into jazz. So I became the pianist of the second big band at Eastman because I was only, you know, freshman, first year student. So I became the pianist of the second band, and then when I got older, I became the pianist of the first band because Phil Markowitz was there before me. Then he graduated, and then I went into his seat. But right from the first year at Eastman, that's when I got really interested. I right away started to take jazz classes while I was studying classical percussion with John Beck. I took jazz classes with Chuck Mangione. I was in a small group on drums, I think, and another small group on piano and playing piano in the jazz lab band. And then that's when I started to learn a lot of jazz standards and listen to a lot of records. Right from that first year, I was right away into all the Miles Davis quintet records of the 1960s with Wayne Shorter and Herbie Hancock. And I started to right away, maybe not that year, but certainly by the next year, I was taking classes analyzing the solos and compositions of Herbie and Keith and Joe Henderson and Miles and everybody. And then came the really great jazz teacher Bill Dobbins, and I was taking his classes on theory and I was taking, and then we had a great arranging teacher, Rayburn Wright, who was a very famous guy who wrote a book that everybody studies on orchestration. I took his classes on in arranging, and I started to write some big band charts. And yeah, it was just all development from there. So there was a lot of very fast development in those years.
Sure.
And then towards the end of the 4 years of the bachelor's degree, I became a member of a group, Oracle.
Yeah, I know.
And then I did one more year at Eastman as a special student because we were waiting for a couple of the members of Oracle who were younger than me to finish.
This is in the middle of the 70s, end of the 70s.
Yeah, this was this would be like, I was at Eastman from 71 to 76.
71
So,
to 76, yeah.
So then, you know, Oracle, what happened is Oracle won a big contest made by Columbia Records. And they sent us to the studio in New York, and we made an album at Columbia Records studio. And we had Miles Davis's engineer for the album. And then we submitted the album as a demo to Columbia Records, but they didn't take us. But we were sure that we had something, you know, and so we moved to Los Angeles in 1976.
Yeah.
And because there was a guy out there, a TV composer, that said he could help to connect us in the music industry, and he brought us to ATV Publishing, which was the publishing company of the Beatles.
Wow.
And they signed us to a publishing contract and gave us quite a lot of money so we could, you know, survive. And they started to go to the record companies and say, we have this great group signed to our company, and we want to get a record deal for them. And they got us a record deal with Chrysalis, which was a big rock and roll label. I know Blondie and Jethro Tull and all this. Cool. So we got signed to Chrysalis, and we did the first album. It got very good reviews. It's a pretty good album. There are things about it I don't like, but I had 4 compositions on the album, so I was the most featured composer on the album, and played a lot of piano solos and stuff. And then the 2 members of Oracle got the very stupid idea that they didn't want to do any more advanced music. They wanted to make a commercial jazz album like Spyro Gyra, and so they could sell more albums and make more money. And I refused to do it. So they threw me out of the group, basically. And then Chrysalis immediately signed me as a solo.
Sure, I can't believe it. Yeah.
And then Oracle came back to me and they said, "Oh, but wouldn't you like to play on half of our second album with us?" And I said, "No."
But probably they have another thing in their mind. Who knows if it's wrong or right? I know
it was wrong. It was wrong. It was totally wrong, because they didn't know how to make commercial music. They only really knew how to make modern jazz, advanced modern jazz and fusion jazz. They didn't know how to make Spyro Gyra music or commercial radio music. They didn't know how to do that. They were advanced Eastman type people, you know. And so they tried to make a commercial album, and it got a half a star in Downbeat.
Wow.
A half out of 5.
Yeah,
half.
Yes.
Half of 1. So the album was a disaster. And they had a very good piano player on it, who just died, actually, Biff Hannon. So anyway, so I was out of that, and while they were doing that, I was making my first album.
Yeah, you start your solo career with the album Exhibition. Was your first album. It's been your Exhibition. And just to mention to my community, to the people of my channel, you played, you choose the 5, 6 of the most important drummer of the planet today, but you were young when this happens. Who was the first for Exhibition?
The Exhibition was Carlos Vega.
Carlos Vega, the great.
On all the tracks, and it was Jimmy Johnson. I had 2 bass players, Gordon Johnson, who went to school with me at Eastman, and Jimmy Johnson, his younger brother, because I had two basses at the same time on three of the tracks. And so I actually wrote compositions that included two bass players playing at the same time. So Gordon said, yeah, just take my brother Jimmy. Now, Jimmy Johnson is famous now. Nobody knew who he was when I got him on the album. He was just some kid. He was like, I don't know, 17 maybe or something, maybe 18.
My God.
It was the first thing he ever did, basically,
Wow.
And so he was like the second bass player. Like Gordon played on all the tracks, and Jimmy played just on the tracks where I had two bass players. Then for my second album, Jimmy was the main bass player, and Gordon played on three tracks that had two bass players for my second album, for the album Jazz Is. But that was the first album for Jimmy, and then I brought Bob Shepard to LA for exhibition. He was teaching in Louisiana, in I think New Orleans, and he was teaching down there. And I said, no, just move to LA. You're going to be on my first album, and you're going to be my sax player and everything. So he moved to LA. And that was the first album he played on, I'm pretty sure. And now he's famous, Then and then the rest of the band were already known people. Gordon Gottlieb on percussion. He had played on dozens of albums with famous pop singers like Carly Simon and stuff like that. And he was a big classical percussionist. He was played a million times with the New York Philharmonic and all the major, chamber orchestras and stuff, and the conductors like Bernstein and Leonard Bernstein and Pierre Boulez, when they came to New York to conduct, they insisted that Gordon be in the orchestra, even though he wasn't a regular member. So he was already very well known, and Carlos was well known. He had played he had played quite a while with Buzz Skaggs and the fusion band Caldera, the Latin fusion band Caldera. So he was already well known. Sax, percussion, I think that's it. Oh, guitar, Barry Finnerty. And Barry was already well known because he had played with the Brecker Brothers.
Yeah, and heavy metal, bebop, and some other stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, for example, yeah, and lots of other people too. He played with Miles at one point.
But you choose directly the musician. Was your choice?
What? Yeah. In my contract with Chrysalis, I had complete artistic control of the album, and I was the producer of the album also. I sent all the parts to everyone about a month before. So when I got to New York, when I came to, we recorded at the Jimi Hendrix studio, Electric Ladyland.
Yeah.
It was a famous rock and roll studio.
I know Electric Lady. Yeah.
Electric Lady. We recorded it there. So, but first we had a couple of days of rehearsals. I don't remember how many days, maybe 2-3 days. We had some rehearsals. But first, I came to New York, 1 or 2 days before the first rehearsal. Checked into and I met some of the musicians at the airport, because I came from LA to go to New York, and somebody came from San Francisco, and Carlos came with me from LA, and then we had the New York musicians waiting for us in New York. So Gordon and Jimmy and the other Gordon. Yeah, sun is going down. Sorry.
Yeah.
So well, anyway, so so some musicians coming from the West Coast, and the other ones are waiting for us in New York. So when I got to the airport, the New York airport, and the guitar, I had hired 2 guitar players, not Barry Finnerty, not originally. No. I hired 1 guitar player from San Francisco and 1 guitar player from New York, was very famous. I won't say any names. Okay. So the guitar player from San Francisco, he met us at the airport, and we got in a limousine to go to the hotel, and he was really high on drugs.
Wow.
And he was jumping around and yelling and acting crazy and saying crazy things in the limousine. He was just completely out of his head. And so, and he was jumping around and he was stamping on my feet, and he was just insane. So, and he was, pretty well-known guy, had played with some famous bands and stuff. So anyway, no, I don't say any names. So we got to, so when the limousine pulled up to the hotel in New York, I got in the elevator with the woman that was my manager at the time. I got in the elevator with her, the manager, right? And I just looked at her. She looked at me. She had been in the limousine too while this guy was acting crazy. And I looked at her. She looked at me, and I said, just 2 words: fire him.
Yeah, I think you're right.
The next day, he was sent back to San Francisco. So then I go to the house of the New York guitar player, who was the other guitar player that because I was going to have 2 guitar players, because I had, as I said, I had 3 tunes where I had 2 bass players.
Yeah.
And those tunes had 1 guitar player. Then I had 3 tunes that had 2 guitar players and 1 bass player. And then the 7th tune was me playing all the instruments overdubbed. It's called Just for Kicks.
I love that too.
I played drum set, and I played everything and all the stuff. But anyway, so I go to the other guitar player, the New York guy, and he's very famous, super famous guy, And I went to his apartment, and I said, okay, so we have the rehearsal. I guess it was going to be the next day, or something like that. And I just said, so just want to come and say hi and everything. And he said, oh yeah, I got a package from you. And he starts looking around, and he pulls out the package that I sent 1 month before with all the music in it. And he goes, oh, here it is. And it wasn't opened. Then he goes, oh, let me open this. He opens it up. He pulls out the parts. He starts looking at him, and you see his eyes going like bulging out of his head. And he goes, oh, there's no way I could ever be ready to do this for the rehearsal. And I said, yeah, that's why I sent it to you a month ago. And he said, there's no way. So I said, okay, who can do it? And
right
he said,
now,
who can do it? And he said, only one guy, Barry Finnerty.
Wow. And
that's how I got Barry.
Italy. He lives in Italy.
Sometimes, yeah, I think he goes back and forth between Oakland, California, San Francisco area, and I forget where in Italy. Well, anyway, so
it's when the musician realize the music.
Yeah, because I sent all the music parts, all the to the musicians, 1 month before, and so they practiced their parts alone, and then when we had the first rehearsal, when finally we all meet in New York, they hear the music for the first time, but they knew very well, each musician knew very well his individual part, but no idea how it fits into a piece of music, and it was especially true, I think, for the bass players, because on some of the pieces I had 2 bass players, and Jimmy Johnson and Gordon Johnson, and the first thing that we rehearsed was one of those pieces, and so each of the bass players knew their individual part, but they didn't know how it connects with the other bass.
Yeah.
And the bass parts were interlocking parts. So if you only knew one part, it didn't make very much sense. But when you heard the 2 together, then it made sense, because they needed each other to interlock. So I think that was a big part of the reaction, because, in fact, I think I remember that Jimmy Johnson really went crazy after he heard it, but everybody did. So what happened was, we started to rehearse one of those tunes. It's called Care to Dance. It starts with the 2 bass players, only with the 2 bass players. So the first thing that happened was those 2 bass players heard how their parts fit together, and it starts like that, and then everyone else joins. And so we were playing it, and then there was a problem, a mistake somewhere, and so I stopped the band to fix the mistake, and everybody just started cheering and clapping. the reaction. I never saw a reaction like that in a rehearsal in my life. Not before and not after.
Yeah, I never saw a reaction like that in my life, and I'm still waiting.
Yeah, right. Well, you have to write something.
No, 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 no. Thanks. Thank you, but no thanks. So and then you recorded the album at the Electric Lady, as you say.
The Electric Ladyland, yeah,
Agreement.
the studio that had been Jimi Hendrix's studio. Jimi
Yeah,
Hendrix.
all together, same room.
Yeah, sure. And there was some things were overdubbed also.
Oh yeah.
So it just depended on the track and the composition. I did different things with different pieces, but generally, if I was going to have overdubs, I would record the rhythm section first, and then maybe the saxophone and guitar after that, and percussion maybe after that, and then there would be extra overdubs, like another percussion track, another track for keyboards.
Yes.
Obviously I had to
Yes.
of course I had to overdub any extra keyboard tracks because I can't play all the keyboard tracks at the same time. So it was like that, but some things were simple, like maybe Upstart. I think we just all got into the studio and played it.
Are you calling Upstart simple?
Well, in the sense of the production, of the recording production, just like you just get the group and play it, But some of the other things had a lot of extra percussion or keyboard overdubs, or something like a rhythm section that was very set, and then maybe the saxophone would come later and overdub and make a few solos, and we choose the best solo, It's just, but other pieces, the sax and the rhythm section played together, and the solos happened at the same time as the rhythm section, because I wanted the interaction between the rhythm section and the soloist. So, for example, on Don Quixote's Hustle, or Disco Nightmare, you have Peter Erskine on drums. The sax solo is wild, and the whole structure for the solo section is very involved. But we did it, we did it all together, and the piano solo too, also. So, but for that, it was more about like a free swinging thing. It had a lot of details, but still the overall feeling was free swinging, and it had the character of something that is going to be a lot of interactions, but also a lot of details. So it was, it was both at the same time, So that was complicated, but I think we did that all together. And I remember I did a lot of overdub solos on Care to Dance. I don't know why, but I played a solo in the first original take, and it was fine, But then I just thought, let me just do some more solos, and just because I could do it, I had the time, and so I did. For some reason I did a lot of solos, and finally I chose the one that's on the album. Was the last one that I did, and that was the best solo, because I got more and more free, I felt, I think the more that I did it, the more I was more adventurous and trying different things and stuff, and so I like that solo a lot. But the first solo I did was good too, but whatever. Yeah. But normally I didn't do a lot of takes. It's Barry Finnerty.
I love that.
One take. It was an overdub solo. We did the rhythm section first on that one, but he went in to do his solo, and it was an amazing solo, and he said, "Oh no, it's no good, I have to do another one." I said, "No, get out of the studio." mean, because it was great, you know.
That reminds me something because you did the same thing with me.
Oh yeah, sure,
Yeah, and
sure, yeah,
at the very beginning, a lot of years later, when we recorded Disquisition, you did the same thing with the title track because
yeah.
I was insecure on the title track, and in the first time, I thought, oh. Uh, uh, I think you wasn't right, but after a couple of years, maybe maybe less, I understand that you was right because
That's
you
that
captured that moment in a.
that track. I would never throw away that track. Never. It's one of the best tracks that I ever had on any album. It's maybe the best.
Ooh, no, 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 no.
It's fantastic. Once when I hear something good, that's it. I can never throw it away. It's impossible. I can never do it. So I don't want to do more takes. Then it starts to become confusing. I don't know what I want or something. No, I don't want that. When I have it, it's good. Keep it. And with Barry, I mean, that's, you can hear it, that solo. It's the same kind of thing. If you listen to that solo, you will agree it's a great guitar solo. But if I tell you that Barry Finnerty said it was no good, you
Yes.
know, that's, you know,
Yeah, but it's your choice because it's your music, and an external point of view sometimes is probably the best thing to judge the other players. I
yeah,
think
that's the job of the producer. You know,
yes,
I was the producer of that album, and so I think I think I am a good producer, if,
sure.
uh, and that is one of the reasons, because I can understand when someone uh, it doesn't like something that they do, but I know it's good. I can understand it, and um, I can support them. You know, I can say, no, man, you know, that's great. You know, that's really good. You know, and I think it's important for to do that as a producer, or even if maybe the musician doesn't like that. You know, they feel like, oh, I I don't want that. You know, blah blah. But I don't know.
I think it's not.
I just will repeat. I don't throw away something good. I just don't do it.
Let me do a little connection between this and the approach you have with, I think, with me, but in general with all the musician and especially the drummers, because you are a drummer too, and you are a percussionist too, but you leave the drummer a lot of freedom. In fact, you say to me, you make to me two comments in 6 years, not probably because you can't do it, but because you won't do it, and you let me the freedom to grow up in your music.
Yeah, sure. Well, but
I don't know.
also,
Let me know your point of view about it because it's so important for young generation and jazz players and young jazz players, young drummers players, I think.
yeah. Well, the comment that I remember making to you was about swing feel. That
Yes.
don't rush it and just sit back a little more in that. And I think I made a joke. Don't play caffeine, play heroin. You know.
Oh my
And
God.
yeah, I think I made that joke. And of course, I don't mean it literally, you know, but
That's
it
sure.
was just the idea to sit back in the swing feel, and because a lot of drummers, and especially I had found in Europe, a lot of drummers get a little bit too excited with the swing feel, and so it's, for me, I mean, it becomes a little bit too much on top of the beat and pushing a little too much, and then even I don't like to play when I feel that coming from the drums, you know. So that, I think that was the main thing. I had to say it to you once and then maybe another time, but I don't remember any other problems because everything else was great.
No, but thank you. And it was a very good chance to me to grow up in your music, and you were right because the perception of the time in Europe is different probably for young musician that have a lot of anxiety, a lot of I don't know why, but I remember that I at the very beginning of our rehearsal, I felt like this. Oh my God, is too much laid back for me? No, I'm rushing. I'm rushing, and after 2 or 3 years, takes the right spot, and I was connected with you. So you teach me how to swing.
Yeah, I mean, maybe somebody else has a different idea, but I like it. I I I prefer that it's not pushing at me, and I think I made that joke, about the caffeine, and I think even it can be literally true that if a musician drinks a lot of coffee, that can affect their their perception of the time and the way their body creates the time. So even that, I think it has a literal meaning. But
Sure, I can. Sorry if I interrupted, but it's literally happened to me with a super famous musician. I don't say the name, as you did in the last interview, but he literally asked me to bring him five Italian coffee. He drink in the same time, and he start, I think, rushing a little bit, just a little bit, but he was rushing a little bit, and he asked me to rush more. Faster,
uh,
faster, faster, faster.
what was his instrument?
Guitar.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, maybe some people like that, but I don't like it. So
Yeah, yeah, sure. Different
yeah,
approach, but
you know,
I
but
agree with you. I'm completely. I think the same
yeah.
after some coffee. I don't drink coffee anymore in my life. I suspect
Oh wow,
4 years
that's
ago I
amazing. Yeah,
stopped.
I still have one in
Yeah,
one for the to start the day. That's all, but not more than that.
yeah, and then let me know a little bit about the switching between these. Uh, may I call it electric period or yeah, and the switching between the quartet with John
Yeah.
Riley.
Well, I mean, I don't call it an electric period or
Yeah,
acoustic
maybe
period
strong,
because
strong.
I played a lot of acoustic piano on my first two albums, and I played some electric piano maybe after that. Let me think. No, because on the third album on Enchantress, then I only played acoustic piano. I didn't play any electric instruments or
Yes, yes, yes,
synthesizers or anything.
yes,
So always for me, the main instrument was the piano,
yes.
and the other things were. I mean, I did on the first two albums. Then I did quite a lot of Fender Rhodes, and then since some synthesizer overdubs. But for the third album, none of that, just piano,
Yes.
and the third album was mostly acoustic, just that the bass player played electric on some tracks and acoustic bass on other tracks. So it was a hybrid on the bass only, everything else was acoustic. I was totally acoustic. And then the same with the fourth album, The Shift, because I had the electric bass, Mike Montesier, on some tracks, and acoustic bass, Sam Burgess, on other tracks. So it was the same kind of thing, hybrid bass, because some things in those two albums, there were some things that I thought really would work better with electric bass. I don't know why, but finally for our trio album, Disquisition, I didn't care about that anymore. I just wanted to have a beautiful acoustic trio and just play whatever. And I think now, when I play now, if I play some of the music from the third album from Enchantress, or almost never from the first two albums, but if I play the older music, I'm happy that the bass player just plays acoustic on any composition. And I don't have any more this idea about the electric bass for something and acoustic bass for something. If the bass player can play acoustic bass on anything that I give him, then we just do that. We keep everything acoustic and everything simple, and it's a it's a more beautiful sound. But then I have to but then sometimes I have to use the digital piano because there's no acoustic piano at the
Sometimes
at
happens.
at the
Yes.
venue. So it's complicated, but I didn't think uh, as far as the transition from the second album, which was, you know, had all the colors and orchestrations of electric, acoustic, everything. The transition from that to Enchantress, which was mostly acoustic, I didn't think about it in terms of electric and acoustic. I thought about it more about, for Enchantress, the idea for me was that I'm not going to write a big compositional charts with a lot of notes and you know, now I did that already. I did it 2 times already, and that's okay. That's great. And now I wanted to just have more space for the musicians and more space for the solos and more space for interaction. And so smaller compositions, you know, and much more time for soloing and interacting. That was really the main change. That was the important change for me, and I kept that change after, you know, since then. I've always have had that approach to the music, that you have a composition. It's not such a big long composition, but it could be a very interesting. It could be also very complicated in this shorter period, you know. But most of the time is really to improvise and to interact. That is the concept. That was the big change, and I always kept that. I preserved that concept
But are you
since the third album.
considering composition like, for example, Precious or Enchantress, the title track of the album, a simple composition?
No, I think that those were transitional
Okay.
compositions. You know, they were. Precious is the most involved composition, but it's still not. I mean, it's still not really as developed and long a composition as, say, like Exhibition. You know, the track Exhibition.
Yes, yes, yes.
That's a big you know, it's like a big musical score that I did for all of those things, you know. And so yeah, Precious is like a transitional. It's a fairly involved composition, but not as much as the older ones. And Enchantress is less than Precious, but still okay. It's intricate, but it's not a huge big composition
Oh,
with a
yeah,
lot of
yeah,
sections and a lot of instruments and overdubs and things like this, you know. So I mean, you can play Enchantress in trio, you know. I mean,
and we did, which
yeah, and we did, and it worked.
Yeah.
It works
And we
great.
recorded also on the album.
Yeah.
And just to say something about the difference between bass, electric bass and acoustic bass, we did also that because we re-recorded the track, the shift, with the acoustic bass, and I never felt there is something missing.
No, I like it better, actually. I like better the shift and Enchantress. Did we do something else old? Another old one, maybe?
Maybe no, I don't know.
Did
I
we
hope.
do?
I
Did
hope
we
in the
do?
future. I hope
Let
in
me
the
think.
future. That's my hoping for the future.
Yeah, I don't remember right now. Oh, the shift. Yeah, we did the shift.
We already did.
I like our trio versions better than the previous versions on the previous albums. I like the trio versions much better there because everything is more transparent for the trio, you know, and there's more interaction and for me the most important thing was I was playing with new vocabulary in my improvisations, because the shift, the fourth album, was recorded in 2006, but I started to develop my new vocabulary in 2008. So that new musical language arrived for the first time on our trio album, Disquisition. So that's my favorite album.
arrived? Because you start developing in 2000, you say 2008.
Yeah, but I was playing with that with new vocabulary with you
Yes, I remember.
in live performances, but I didn't record with new vocabulary until we did the album in 2017. That's the only album that has the new musical language that I developed starting in 2008 and continuing for many years until.
And I remember you told us many times that you want to go back deeper on Coltrane's music, and you also gave us the advice to listen deeper to Coltrane music and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah, that was a big influence when I was developing new musical language. I was um, influenced by the most adventurous improvisers. So that would be Coltrane in the period of Love Supreme and Crescent,
Yes.
and things of Wayne Shorter, things of Herbie Hancock, things of certain things of other people, Woody Shaw, Chick Corea, of course. Yeah, I was influenced by the things that sounded to me the most adventurous, played by great musicians, and I started to develop the new language, and I continued to develop it for quite a lot of years until
Yes.
we recorded in 2017, and so when I listen to that album, Disquisition, I feel like, that's the way I want to sound, you know,
Wow.
you know. And I think I played well on the other albums and everything, but on Disquisition, I feel like this is really the way that I wanted finally to be, and I feel very happy that and satisfied, very satisfied that I did that developmental work, and finally I'm playing in a way that I feel is really my musical personality, and my character as a person is more true in that musical language, because it's it's edgier, it's more adventurous, it's more complex harmonically, and more interesting melodically.
I used to work with your music with my students a lot because
Oh.
they have to know, and I work with new music. I mean the disquisition music sometimes with the charts, with this kind of things. But recently I start working on the very old stuff, like for example the Acrobat and all this kind of song. I say song because to me sound like song that we spoke about it, and the reaction, John, the reaction huge is huge, and they don't feel and they don't listen to this music like old stuff. It's like kind of out of time, not in terms that keeping the tempo,
Yeah.
out of the timeless kind of thing.
Yeah.
It's always, and I saw a lot of comments also in YouTube that say this kind of stuff. And I know you live in France. You sometimes you use this word uh, retired, this kind of thing. But
Yeah, I'm more or less, yeah. But
I
I always say I'm more or less retired, but not exactly retired, because I could suddenly pop up and do something, So I mean,
as you know, I wish to listen to your new composition and new stuff. But I think, and I'm sure I'm right. A lot of people wants to hear something new about you because we have
yeah, I have written a couple of new things, but I haven't played them yet, and I didn't even learn how to play them yet. So, but I have a few things written down on paper. But uh, as you know, the last time I played in public was with you, so that was 2022, I think. So anyway, I don't have anything I can say about any of that. It's just that I'm not I'm not active right now, but you never know.
Let's see. Let's see. In closing, if you can say, if you can give an advice to the young generation to play music at your level, with very good musician in the right way, talking about development, making attention to the details, and all this kind of stuff. So, if you have an advice, is welcome.
Well, for me, the most important thing is to listen to important, great recordings and of great musicians, and when you listen, to notice any little thing that you think you like, as you like the most, you like a lot, that you like it. Just if something you're listening, everything sounds great, but then there's one little thing and you go, wait, what is that? My advice is stop the recording and go and study that one little thing, and then practice it and try to make it part of your musical language.
Yes.
Melodically and harmonically, and then practice it a lot every day until it's in your language. You don't have to even think about it. It will just come out when you're improvising. So my advice is, when you hear something that for you is really special, don't just let it pass.
Yes.
Stop and study that thing, even just a small thing, even just some small motif or phrase, and then start to practice how you use it in your music, and then it will evolve and change, because the context will be different,
Yeah, sure.
from the recording that you heard it on. So don't let great things pass by. Just every time you hear a little thing, stop, study it, learn how to practice it, learn how to use it in your own music, and little by little, you will develop a very interesting vocabulary. Don't let these things pass.
Yes, thank you very much. What a good
Okay.
advice. John, thank you very much for this, for your time, for your precious advices. I'm sure will be so precious for young generation drummers and musicians in general. I hope to play with you as soon as we can. And
Yeah, I will tell you if I can organize something again, and we will see if you can come, if you can arrive here.
okay, thank you very much. Thank you, John. Thank
Okay.
you very much.
Okay, Bruno, it was a pleasure.